I want to start with something I think the food and drink industry is getting wrong about GLP-1 drugs. Everyone is talking about people eating less and what that means for the sales volume. But actually, the brands winning with these consumers are not the ones that make their food and drink products smaller. They are the ones that made their food and drink products better. And that distinction is what this video is all about. By the end of the episode, you will understand exactly what is shifting in the consumer taste and behavior, and what it means for the food and drink products you are currently building. Hi there, I'm Manon Galizzi, I'm a food scientist and a flavour expert, and in this podcast I share everything I've learned from helping food and drink brands choose the right flavours to get more repeat purchase and stay on retailers' shelves. So for those of you who are not fully aware of what GLP-1 drugs are yet, let me give you a quick overview, because I think you need to understand what they actually do before we get into what it means for food and drink products. GLP-1 stands for glucagon-like peptide 1. They are a class of medications, and the well-known brands are Ozempic, Wegovy, and Mounjaro. And they were originally developed for type 2 diabetes. They work by slowing down the gastric emptying, suppressing the appetite, and reducing what researchers have now called the food noise. So the food noise are essentially all of the constant mental chatter that most of us have around food. So the craving, the impulses around snack, and sometimes that feeling of never being quite satisfied. Now, in the UK, GLP-1 use have tripled in just 2 years. Users now account for 6% of British households, according to research. And now that a Wegovy oral pill have just been approved in the UK, people don't need to do injections or put their medication in the fridge anymore, which means the cost barrier is coming down and the uptake is going to accelerate. So this is not a niche health trend, it's definitely becoming mainstream, especially in the UK, and very quickly. So food and drink brands need to start paying attention right now. And when you look at the data, the commercial picture becomes very clear very fast. A survey over 11,500 British households found that households with the GLP-1 users have reduced their annual grocery bills by £780 million. And within that, 72% of users said they cut back on crisps, 75% cut back on chocolate. But this is where it gets really interesting. Premium chocolate sales, on the other hand, rose by 17% among GLP-1 users in 2025. And I want to come back to that because it really explains what is happening with this consumer's relationship with food. So keep that in mind as we go through the rest of the episode. Now, the part of this I think is actually the most interesting for us as food and drink professionals is what these drugs do to taste perception. Because as always, it's not a simple picture, and I think that complexity matters a lot for how we respond as the food and drink industry. A study published in a scientific journal found that around 85% of GLP-1 users had weaker tastes across all of the 5 basic tastes. So sweet, bitter, umami, salty, and sour. So this is the conventional understanding that these drugs dull taste. But then, the MMR research surveys found something that goes the other way. Users more commonly reported experiencing more intense taste. More than half had increase in sweetness, 37% experienced a higher saltiness, and 34% a higher sourness. So you have here 2 bodies of research pointing in almost the opposite direction. So it just proves at the moment that there's more research that needs to be done on GLP-1 to really understand the taste perception. Maybe it depends on the brand and the type of drugs that you take. There is something to bear in mind, and it's called the Ozempic mouth. So it's a side effect that some users experience which gives them a metallic taste or a dry mouth, which makes, of course, anything that is very sweet, very salted, or anything alcohol related much less appealing. But here is where the finding, I think, matters most for food and drink product development. It comes from the MMR research, and is this. These GLP-1 drugs suppress the wanting and the craving, but they don't suppress the liking and the experience related to food once it's consumed. So the impulse goes down, but the pleasure of eating, despite some of the side effects, still the same. So from the studies, for most GLP-1 users, they are not eating less because food stopped bringing them pleasure. They are just eating less because the urge and the impulse to eat is just reduced. So when they do choose to eat something, they choose it deliberately and they want something that is worth it. And this is why premium chocolate is growing. So when you can eat only that little, you want the food to be genuinely worth it, not something that is come from an impulse or habit snacks that you have always in your cupboard, something that is a considered choice. What does it look like in terms of actual food and drink choices? The research is very consistent on this. GLP-1 users gravitate towards food and drink products that are lighter, easier to digest, and not heavy on the stomach. So think about yogurt, kefir, soup, fruit and vegetables, and porridge. They are doing really well on the market at the moment for the GLP-1 users. So, for example, research has shown that they prefer a hot drink like a coffee rather than having a full breakfast in the morning. But what they are not looking for is diet food or something that is low fat or low sugar alternatives. So these consumers of GLP-1 drugs, they are selective, not restrictive. GLP-1 users want nutrient, protein, fiber, real ingredients. And obviously they want flavor that satisfy that little bite that they're gonna have. And there is also another aspect that is very important for the GLP-1 users. 59% of GLP-1 users in Europe now say they are paying closer attention to the ingredients on pack. And according to Circana, that behavior persists even after they stop the medication. So you have a consumers who are reading your label carefully and asking whether that food or drink product actually justifies the stomach space. So what does it all mean practically if you are a food and drink brand? The first one is around sweetness perception. The research suggests that the GLP-1 users are more sensitive to bitter of note in sweetness rather than the general population. So if your strategy involves simply just replacing sugar with sweetness, that may not land really well with the GLP-1 users. The direction here, as researchers as the MMR have put it, is towards a cleaner, more calibrated and focused formulation, not just simply removing sugar and replacing by sweeteners. The second is the flavor intensity in smaller portion. So if you are creating food or drink products for GLP-1 users and you're making smaller for them, you really have to have impactful flavors. And this is a trap I see food and drink founders fell into quite a lot, is not realizing that the portion size of your product really matters when it comes from flavors. And the smaller, the harder it is to actually get that flavor punch. And the third one is around texture. So GLP-1 users seems to like smoother and lighter texture. And the fourth one is transparency. These consumers are making deliberate choices. They think about it even more. They are reading the label. There is a really conscious decision of, should I buy this food and drink product and is it gonna feel well on with me? And the brand that understood this very early on are acting on it, and Marks & Spencer is a very good example of that. Marks & Spencer have launched a nutrients dense range that was developed with their chef and their nutritionist, and the positioning is really clear. It says pack with more flavors, fiber, vitamins and minerals into every bite, and also perfectly portioned to deliver high level of nutrients per calorie. So this is the best brief for GLP-1 users. So smaller portion, high nutrient density, really ingredients, smaller amount of ingredients, and flavor punch. And the brands who start asking the right food product development question right now about the portion design, the flavor density, the type of ingredients, the calories, the transparency, the labels, they already have a big advantage when these GLP drugs are going to be mainstream in 12 to 18 months. So here's what I want you to do this week. If you are developing a product for GLP-1s, I want you to ask yourself these three questions. Despite the small portion, does the flavor really deliver on the experience? Does your ingredients list hold up to consumers reading every single line carefully? And is the texture light, smooth, and digestibly comfortable rather than something heavy and overwhelming? So those three questions are generally good starting point for understanding how ready your food and drink products are for GLP-1 users. And if you want to work through any of them properly, this is exactly what I can help you with a flavor emoji. I will add the link in the episode description. This is one of those topics I'm going to keep on coming back to as it develops, because I genuinely think this is one of the most important shifts happening in the food and drink industry right now. So make sure you subscribe, whatever platform you're listening or watching to this episode, if you want to follow where it goes. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye!